I think we've just gone live. Greetings, friends and countrymen. Today we're discussing in our first Google Hangout some of the more seminal subjects, shall we say, which are likely to be revealed to us in the coming days: hollow Earth, artificial moon, and hollow sun. We've got with us Dr. Brooks Agnew, who's the scientific project director of the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition, which is described as being by far the most innovative and courageous exploration effort being planned in modern times. He's the descendant of the Scottish explorer James Ross, credited with the discovery of the magnetic North Pole in 1831. Now, Brooks' interest in space exploration inspired him with friends at JPL, NASA, and Hughes. He entered the Air Force in 1973, where he graduated top in his class. He's probably one of the most experienced pioneers of ground-probing radar technology in the world, and this technology is currently utilized in the Mars Express program. He's authored thousands of technical scientific papers, booklets, and documentaries. Dr. Brooks Agnew, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Our second guest is Dan Winters, popularly regarded as one of the world's most iconic scientific minds. Dan is principally known for advancing the science of fractality. Graduating with honors from the University of Detroit, he pursued graduate studies in psychophysiology and the origin of languages. He has undertaken many diverse studies, from quantum physics to modeling at the MIT Space Lab, to developing the early biofeedback prototype equipment as Dr. Albert Axe's protege. Dan has studied and traveled widely, including at the Gurdjieff School of Sacred Gymnastics, in Florence with Buckminster Fuller, at the Giza Pyramids, in Israel, across the Andes, and at Findhorn. He draws on many sources, including science, mythology, popular culture, looking for ideas about the deep connectedness of all things and how the profound nature of our oneness can be approached from architecture or art, math or biology, electronics and computers or myth. He is without any doubt the main inspiration behind the look and feel of the New Earth bioarchitecture designed by our chief designer Juan Schlosser, who's drawn on Dan's work in bioresonance, fractality, and sacred number over many long years. Dan, welcome. I'm not sure we're hearing you, Dan.
Sorry, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
just to say, sounds great. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. Our third guest is Bill Donovan, acknowledged as a leading engineering mind in our times. He collaborated with David Childress on the Anti-Gravity Handbook, putting much of the research that he gleaned from analyzing various technologies into print. Afterwards, he wrote a follow-up, an updated version called Glimpses of Epiphany. He initially became interested in the hollow Earth from research into the Byfield Brown effect and the nature of gravity itself. Bill has conducted critical research from a scientific perspective on the hollow Earth concept. From his extensive research on ufology and other studies has emerged a perspective of reality which includes a new physics of a unified field theory that was suppressed at the turn of the 20th century. I just left you, Bill and Dan, a number of days ago in the south of France. Lovely to have you here, Bill. Welcome.
Thank you, Sacha. I'm glad to be here.
Good, good. Andrew Bartzis is our esteemed New Earth anchor and popularly known as the Galactic Historian. He's kindly agreed to be my wingman and has a great deal to add on the subject of the hollow Earth, the artificial moon, and the hollow sun. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sacha. It is absolutely wonderful again to be once again broadcasting an incredible New Earth Nation show. We're bringing the best hosts, the best guests from all over the galaxy to speak about Hollow Earth, our legacy.
Great. The hollow Earth idea holds that Earth is not a solid sphere, but is hollow and has openings at the poles, with an inner central sun and likely even inhabited by beings far more ancient and certainly more intelligent than ourselves. Well, that's not too difficult to imagine. Furthermore, it advances the idea that a highly evolved civilization, the Agathans, exist within Earth. Their people include advanced spiritual and technological masters who sometimes foray into the atmosphere in their UFOs. Certainly, there are very credible reports of the expedition led by Admiral Byrd in the 1940s and many other accounts, historically speaking. His Holiness the Dalai Lama went on record recently stating that Agartha is real, not a myth, which, if we are to take verbatim, would indicate to us that one of the world's leading spiritual figures and a man not known for bullshitting is telling us something which perhaps we would be well served listening to. Every age has its skeptics and cynics and those who would hold fast to the old thought forms, the old intellectual and philosophical and religious ideas. But at a time when we are clearly at planetary meltdown in so many aspects of our lives, we should perhaps be savvy enough to let go of any hard and fast ideas. Breathe in a little humility, perhaps, extend a little quantum curiosity, perhaps, and let the light come streaming into our imaginations. Who knows, this might even serve the evolution of species. My first question is to Brooks Agnew. Brooks, what is the current status of the North Pole Inner Earth expedition?
Well, to say that it's frozen out would be kind of accurate. The last couple of years, the Arctic freeze has come early and stayed late. The ice is too thick to make a foray into the area we wanted to go into 2007 through 2009 with an icebreaker. So the team is rethinking how it's going to access this area. We were originally thinking that it had never been accessed by sea before, so that it would take a large Russian icebreaker capable of taking about between 100 and 105 passengers, which we would carefully select to make the project a success. Well, to do that is about $3 million to rent the boat, get everybody on it, get everybody off it and back home and collect all the data. That 3 years was spent trying to raise the funds to lease the ship. That was not forthcoming, so we are trying other methods, maybe a smaller team going by air, or maybe even going in the winter time or late winter to see if we can access it that way.
Good stuff. It seems to me that this is something which would probably do really well as a crowdfunding campaign. Have you considered that?
We ran two of them. We ran one on Indiegogo and we ran one on GoFundMe. And even though we had fairly good exposure, we just didn't have enough big enough database of names to access enough people to make it a success. I think we raised less than $10,000, so we just gave it all back. Okay, well that's something we should perhaps revisit, because there are a lot of recognized figures and names who would put themselves in the fray here, and it might make sense to revisit that and look at a dedicated campaign. Certainly amongst new earthers, we're not holding hard and fast to all these old ideas. It might be a good bigger campaign. Well, I agree with that. I'm just concentrated on the car company right now, so I don't have a lot of time to put toward my hobby. But very briefly, can you just let us know about that? What is it that you're working on? I know a bit about it from the sustainability angle. We have designed and are now manufacturing the nation's first highway speed electric pickup truck. We're clearing the EPA hurdles. They're throwing them up as fast as they can, but we're going around them and over them. They don't like electric vehicles on the road, so go figure that one out. But very soon we'll be able to sell them here in the United States. I drive one all over the place, and people want it really badly. So our plant in Charlotte is about 33,000 square feet. We're expanding to 90,000 square feet, and we'll be able to produce about 300 vehicles a month by the first of the year. Thanks, Bruce. Bill Donovan, advocates of mainstream science use Gaussian mathematics to argue that in a hollow Earth model, all gravitational forces cancel each other out. If the Earth is indeed hollow, the gravity is a slightly more complicated phenomenon than can be explained with Gaussian physics, and the current scientific theory of gravity is in vast need of an overhaul. Is this a fair statement?
This would be, yes. Yes, it's much more complex when you have different geometries.
Okay. Dan, I want to throw this very quickly at you, introduce your voice to our family and friends again. How would you describe the relationship between the Earth and the Moon in terms of phase coherence?
Well, of course, if there ever was a frequency signature of the heartbeat of the Earth, it's a Schumann resonance harmonic cascade. What's fascinating is the Schumann harmonic series, 3, 10, 13, that whole series turns out to be almost exactly pure phase conjugation by the new equation, where we actually derive the origin of everything negentropic and alive. If you take the Planck time constant and do whole number multiples of the Golden ratio, you get the exact frequency and the brainwave frequencies that create bliss and peak perception, and you get the duration of the Earth year and the Venus year, and you get the exact frequencies of photosynthesis. So we believe we understand the only frequency signature which makes things self-organizing alive, and therefore why Gaia is self-organizing, literally negentropic. The thing that's also fascinating about that, of course, is then that may feed what Bill Donovan will probably speak to later, is his hypothesis that the inner Earth, smoky god, the little red glow that everyone reports inside the Earth, is actually the cold fusion of nickel hydrogen to copper. And in fact, the Schumann harmonic series would then be a phase conjugate pump wave that's actually feeding the cold fusion inside the Earth, and that means the heart of the Earth is actually, has its own kind of self-awareness, which has a good metaphor about, being self-empowered. The life is inside. The fire is in the furnace. As opposed to the moon, which, all the seismic data, NASA and everybody says it's probably hollow and probably metal, which means it's opposite to phase conjugate. It's opposite to life. And we know all of the biodynamic and the Farmer's Almanac, all the literature says you must avoid the moon if you want a seed to germinate, and we think we know exactly why. This is not to say the moon is evil, but it is opposite to life. But anyway, this gets into a fun story about the frequencies and where phase conjugation makes life, and the opposite of that makes not life.
And just taking that further, Dan, can you describe in simple terms how the sun needs human or sentient beings for its own survival every bit as much as we need the sun in order to survive?
Yeah, we helped originate and found the famous Yahoo Solar Shamans e-group. It's called the Solar Heart Community now, which is a bunch of solar shamans who had literally, any good shaman can go into the heart of the sun, just like they go into the eye of the eagle. And they all report the heart of the sun, which we know the symmetry of the Anu with 7-5 spin, perfect slipknot heart of the sun as seen. And the heart of the sun is experienced as cool and inviting, and you have the whole shamanic story of it's an eyeball. And even Benthoff reported that in the biophysics of Kundalini in his perception to the earth and the sun. Whereas now there's been, actually 11 different times it was measured that when 1 million children basically sing at the same moment, there's a dramatic effect on the solar flares. They're literally modulated. They're softened. Literally, we know that collective focused human attention measurably causes the sun to become phase coherent, which is to say negentropic, centripetal, literally implosive. So the advanced spiritual literature now appears to be proven by physics, which is to say the stars need what DNA makes, namely a centering force, a centripetal force, an implosive force. So, stars don't go to a lot of trouble to make DNA for no reason. They need a centripetal force. Just like a song line to the Aboriginals held the planet together because they were dreaming it. What they meant by the dream cell is that necessary centripetal force that we provide. And that's the very nature of consciousness. And we can talk about that at length, but that's the flavor.
And what does one say to the 10,000 professors of science and physics out there, or 100,000 likely, who scoff at these ideas?
Well, I'd say they should read Bill Tiller's advanced physics book, Conscious Acts of Creation, in which it's replicably measured dramatically that focused human attention causes electric fields to compress. We're the first one to explain why. We actually measured, I have pioneered the work, measuring golden ratio phase conjugation and brainwave frequencies. Turns out to be the same frequencies as Schumann. And we know exactly what makes brainwaves centripetal, why focused human attention is a flame in the mind. And Bill added greatly to this when he helped me understand that not only the right and left hemisphere is making golden ratio alpha beta, brainwave frequencies, but the right and left hemisphere must be 180 degrees out of phase for the psychokinesis called flame in the mind, because that's what makes a longitudinal wave, and that's the compressional physics of perfect fusion and the Holy Grail fusion, that whole bit. So the whole generation of longitudinals by the brain waves is actually the physics of how mind becomes centripetal. And that's the very physics of precipitation in physics and magic. It's very good physics.
Andrew Bartzis, can you give us the benefit of your own wisdom or insights in regards to the subject of hollow Earth from the perspective of a galactic historian, and then take the floor?
From the perspective of a galactic historian, what the galactic historian does is sees everything from the perspective of the planet, from the Akashic record. All recorded sentient life is here in a shared reality matrix, and some are at full 100% sovereign free will, and some are in between that sovereignty to 0%. And each one are part of a cosmology of experience. Our planet has a soul inside it, and that soul had experiences much like you and I did in a multi-dimensional expressions in tens of thousands of bodies until finally decided to become a planet. And planets are a thing that we create in multiple scenarios, just like discarding a shell. A crab discards a shell, and it's left with a hollow on the inside until another spirit comes inside that shell and begins manifesting life or inviting other life to come and live on it. For that planet to be a part of a life cycle, it's in a solar system, and that solar system is operating through the hollow Earth perspective of the soul of the planet and allowing gateways of energy from a sun to a planet to exist. And this is called blue body commerce. This is where different spiritual entities from different planets can travel to a sun through a solar gate and then begin to experience multiple layers of reality on multiple planets simultaneously. And that is the nature of the hollow Earth on our world, as it is on many, many other worlds. It is a place for our multidimensional, highest frequency macro versions of ourself to come in and understand what micro versions of ourself are going through the process of extended macro understanding of free will. The hollow Earth puts us outside of time in the perspective of the planet, whether it's neutral or in polarity, doesn't matter. Their perspective is that all life is in the center or in energy form and can exist in between the space of all atoms. And so hollow Earth can literally be hollow, with a place that you and I could walk into and there be hundreds of beings. But another perspective, it is the space between atoms where our heart and our mind can infinitely co-create based off of what our DNA says. Our DNA says, through the Schumann resonance, we all share something, and that is the shared reality with the planet creating dream matter for us to come in and create a fetus. Our hollow Earth is where our ancestors reflect. Without ancestors, we cannot exist on a planet. They are our anchorage. So there are times that we sleep and we are dreaming with the surface people. There are times that we sleep and we dream with the subsurface people. There are tens of thousands of different cities throughout the Agarthan network. The Agarthan network is actually created as a part of a fortress, an astral fortress system, to prevent technological spiritual invasion. There were a group of off-world species who figured out photonic light technology where they could unmanifest physical bodies and then bring them to our world and then manifest the energy body in our incarnation grid, which they had discovered the golden mean mathematical ratios of, and then directly incarnate anyone they wanted into our world. This created what's called spiritual warfare, and this is what took hollow Earth here on Earth to the highest levels. There are 12 layers of fortification to prevent technological invasion of spirits or people coming here to be squatting. 51 million years ago, our people, about 2 trillion people, lived on our world, and a little more than a week later, after this free will concept of spiritual invasion through technologically came in, there were 500 trillion beings on our world, and that messed up our social agreement on time. And this is where microcavities of different places of hollow Earth began to reflect the different epochs and ages that people had great or bad lifetimes through. And now hollow Earth, in its current perspective, is this great reflecting mirror of who we've been and where to go and find our ancestors, as well as the legacy of technology that's built within this mobile planet. This planet has what's called a unity consciousness drive. It can move place to place to place. It has a thing that is considered an engine, a quantum machine of all the surface people that are interacting with that of the sentience of the Earth and the sentience of the hollow Earth can create a a way for the planet to go from one solar system to another, to another, and to another, or become a completely free-roaming galactic planet. And that is when the light of the hollow Earth begins to create its full solar furnace effect, and then we are no longer have linked to the tree of life that says you must have a solar system to create soul commerce, which is how souls, trillions of them throughout the galaxies, are looking for the most dense and rich experience. They come to Earth, they go to Mars, they go to Alpha Centauri, whatever they do. When Earth can start moving, it can begin to resolve some of the patterns it's been in with the reflection of its hollow Earth ancestors who may have left Earth and gone somewhere else and done something good or bad. And those ancestors would return home to the nest, or the nest would come back to them.
Thank you. Brooks, do you take any issue with anything that you've heard there? We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. My microphone was muted two ways, once on the screen and once on my board. I don't have too much of an argument with it. I'm trying to think of it more on a practical standpoint, that is to say geotropic or geocentric, because I don't really have a lot of perspective about trillions of souls living on Earth. I do feel that it's highly significant that right now we have 7 billion souls alive on the Earth, and that there is a consciousness synchronization going with the planet itself. The planet is affected by the consciousness of the people on it. And so to say that the planet has a soul, or that it is a combination of higher and lower matter, is also accurate. That being said, you have an interaction between the consciousness, the average consciousness or regional consciousness of the souls that are alive on the Earth and the Earth itself, which means the Earth could have an allergic reaction to the behavior, to the mindset, the consciousness of the souls living on it. I also feel it's significant, and I made note of this in the Arc of Millions of Years series, that the Earth is very close, or has just passed, or is approaching a sort of aperture in its galactic precession, the solar system is, and that the Earth has to coordinate this with the most consciousness that it can get on it at one time. When I look at the Industrial Revolution and see how we went from basically walking or riding horses to traveling in space in 100 years, that's a historic microsecond. It is the influx of information flowing into the Earth through these gates that have been mentioned through the sun. I definitely believe that. The reason I believe it is I'm a patented scientist, and one of the most interesting things I ran across was a statement that was made by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson said that when songs come to him, he has to hurry and copyright them, or Prince will get them. What he realized, what he was saying innocently, is that these ideas flow across the Earth, and they're interpreted by everyone using their own life experiences, some in music, some in art, some in electronics, some in physics, but we express those energies that are coming across the Earth with our own will and our own consciousness. We get multiple inventions in the same field where nothing has been invented for millennia, almost within weeks of each other. The evidence to back this up is absolutely irrefutable, and your guests' comments are accurate when it comes to that. Absolutely. I walk into labs and almost see my setup sitting on their bench. And I say, how did you get this? And they said, well, we just developed it. We just started putting things together, and it came together. Well, you almost have it. This piece goes here and this piece goes there, and then it runs. But the fact that they had it was mind-boggling. Yeah. I see right now that the Earth is in tremendous turmoil with the consciousnesses that are on it. We're at war, we're at economic strife, we have those that have controlled this planet for probably millennia losing control of it, and the reason they're losing control of it is because there are these pockets of light all over the planet, like right here on this program. And because we can communicate instantaneously across the planet, the average consciousness of the planet is ebbing and flowing almost by the hour. It's never done that before. And that's why we can never give up. Thank you guys so much for your comments.
Indeed. And, Dan would speak about, in terms of the old order, being out of phase coherence with the now, with where we're at now, galactically speaking, in respect of the path and the journey of the solar system and the galaxy. Dan, do you take any issue with what Andrew Bartz has summarized?
Well, I've been studying Anton Parks' work on, ancestral memory and the history of the ET origins of DNA and the Dracos, the Uru, and he has done a lot of work to document the shamanic and clairvoyant investigations of ancient history, and would encourage Andrew to do that too. I very much like Andrew's comments about the function of collective memory, or specifically ancestral memory. Every ancient culture so much emphasized that there was no actual life without collective ancestral memory, whether you call it communion of saints or the collective unconscious or ancestral memory. And the Hopi, for example, knew that if the metal sewage pipes of the U.S. government were placed in the sacred burial ground, suddenly there would be no ancestral memory. And that's a hint to very good physics, which is that you make the coherence field called phase conjugate, which enables the possibility of collective unconscious or ancestral memory, the voices of ancestral DNA, as it were. And we know exactly how phase conjugate dielectric fields have that everywhere at once phenomena called Alice in barium titanate land, if you read the paper about phase conjugates. The point is that it's that everywhere at once phenomena that's only enabled if you set up the right conditions, which are called sacred space. We know how to measure it with GeV from Korotkov to Sputnik. Sacred space is a fractality in air. It's the magnetic lines cross in a fractal, and that creates a kind of space which enables literally where the Kogis went to make phone calls to their ancestor, which is literally the centripetal field that holds the land together. So this introduction to the importance of the presence of ancestral memory is very important to understand the very nature of what makes the planet centripetal, Gaia, self-organizing. It's a good thing to think about.
Okay. Bill Donovan is going to do a presentation in a few minutes after we play a 5 or 6 minute video, just to give some folks a snapshot overview of the hollow Earth, the principal theory. But Andrew, before I forget, because I'm interested in something you said, you speak in terms of hundreds of trillions of souls having inhabited the Earth. Are you speaking on the subtle metaphysical planes as well as the temporal plane when you cite those kinds of numbers?
54 million years ago, when it began, our universe went from a pockets of semi-free will to a universe that was 100% free will. And there was some leftover light-body DNA programming that indicated that polarity of light and dark would be a general theme until we resolved something. We literally went from 2.2 trillion physical living beings living on Earth to 500 trillion beings who immigrated from the astral world directly into incarnate life form, whether it plant, animal, dog, cat, or Tyrannosaurus Rex. Literally, the life force of Earth expanded hundreds of thousands of fold, and the legacy of our human DNA, ancestral DNAs, began to be dishonored by they began bringing their ancestral wisdom here to try to overlay the 2.2 trillion with 497 trillion to literally outbreed us spiritually, physically, to literally take over the hollow Earth with a whole brand new concept by replacing the ancestral placeage. But Earth was able to handle the volume of increase, which was never expected before, which created basically the United Nations of all hollow Earths, which is ancestral relations to tens of millions of other planets who are part of this ancestral resolve process in the hollow Earth, which is a separate reality than the above, because the above is where the people from hollow Earth have resolved their stuff and are making sure soul family ancestors who aren't a part of our system can experience the end here, which is the dissolving of the facade reality. Okay.
Joanna's our production team over there, Joanna and Avi. Joanna's going to trigger a film. You can start that now, and we'll come back in 6 minutes, whereupon Bill Donovan is going to give us an oversight from his perspective. I think it's about a 20-25 minute presentation. So stand by. Joanna, hit it.
While Joanna does that, it might be appropriate to point out that astrophysics is clear that any planet born with fire inside is going to cool partially hollow. And the fire inside is part of what gives it the centripetal sort of soul-like, self-organizing, mindful quality. So the concept of hollow planets is actually consistent with astrophysics. Well, here's a film. I think we have technical problems on the film. I'm sure I don't find the usual Are you on the game? Yes.
Okay, folks. I don't know if you can hear me, but we're having some problems here. Is there anyone else who can trigger this film? We're not succeeding this end.
Well, maybe Bill should just go ahead. The film is helpful. It just shows a zoom through the hollow sense. It did show for a few minutes there, but maybe Bill should just proceed.
Okay, Bill, if you're good to go, crack on. Sorry about that, folks.
Okay. So I'll go to, let's see, share screen.
Bill has a lovely PowerPoint on the hollow Earth, which he presented at an international conference at Rennes-le-Château in the Holy Grail country of France.
That's right.
There it is. Now we just...
Okay.
I think we have your screen there, Bill.
Okay, great. So anyway, it's the Hollow Earth in legend, history, and modern times. The legends go back thousands of years. Olaf Janssen and the Smoky God is good information, detailed. The coming race by Bulwer Lytton is also very interesting. It's in the crust, but not in the interior. And also, Eddie Dorpa is also a good source. Genesis for a New Species, which is an unpublished manuscript found on the web, has detailed maps of the interior as well as entrance points. And I believe that one is going to be published soon. So, Journey to the Earth's Interior by Marshall B. Gardner is also a good source. Phantom of the Poles is also interesting. Now, this is something I didn't know until I came to France, is that the Journey to the Center of the Earth was written in Bugarash. And now let me go back to that. Okay, now, the side story about that one is that he wrote about an entrance to the inner Earth in Bugarash, and in the original manuscript, and it was changed so that instead of Bugarash, it was another location. But there's some really strange stuff going on over there. In fact, the entire Pyrenees in this area is honeycombed with caves. It's like Swiss cheese.
And we even think we know where he wrote the manuscript in Bucharest. Bill, right on the bottom there, it shows the center of gravity 400 miles in, regarding Sacha's question about the gravity, that you would actually be attracted on the inside toward the outside, correct? That's what you're saying.
Right, right. You're actually attracted toward that center point, the center of gravity.
So the center of gravity is not the center of the Earth. It's actually 400 miles toward the center. And you say there's some data to actually support that. Yes, yes. This is in different geometries for different... instead of having a sphere, for example, if you had a disk, and that disk were 800 miles thick, and you had a pump wave into the disk, then you would be actually generating gravity. Now, it's a moot point whether it's actually artificial gravity or real gravity. I mean, pretty much all gravity is artificial gravity at that point. So what happens is that the Schumann resonance forms a pump wave. This is getting into Thomas Bearden's work in scalar electromagnetics and longitudinal electromagnetics, where if you produce, right, so if you have a longitudinal pump wave in the planet, it actually can give the illusion that there's more mass there. Now, what happens is that it can cause matter to laze gravity and longitudinal waves the same way that a laser can produce coherent light. So the fact that the Earth is producing more or less a coherent gravitational signature is very, very odd. I mean, this is not predicted in any mathematical model anywhere, and it's an anomaly. Didn't you say once, Bill, that when they drop something down in these deep, like Project Moholes, they actually see that the gravity is anomalous when the weight goes down or something? Yes, it's going down much, much faster than it's supposed to. Maybe you should go ahead with your show, Bill. Sorry. Okay, so... Okay, now we have the legend of the lost Vikings, which is kind of fascinating. There's a Viking colony established in the 10th century. The Little Ice Age afterwards caused crop failures. The colony disappeared. The legend that the entire colony went northwest of Greenland after reports of abundant game and warm climate. Evidence of residents making sleds for boats. You know, why make sleds? What is northwest of Greenland? Genesis for a New Space Age shows a Viking colony in the map of the interior. Cool. So this is a possible destination of the Vikings, as in the white area. I'm sure Brooke is familiar with this one. He's smiling. Okay. Okay, the Smoky God, Olaf Janssen's story. This was inspired or dictated to Willis George Emerson. It's an untrained observer's account of the voyage. Many points are corroborated with other accounts, independently corroborated. So this is also very interesting. Vril, the power of the coming race. Bulwer Lytton was a Rosicrucian and had access to secret information. Details of the interior residence are too difficult to make up, such as a lack of canine teeth and appendix, so that we're looking at a kind of a parallel evolution going on. Large stature is corroborated with other sources. Was the Vril wand an orgone laser? Now that's an interesting question in itself. Longitudinal. Right, right. So we're talking about a longitudinal laser that could actually carve rock. So pre-Vril societies considered Kumpash or primitive. In fact, they're talking about at the end of the book that they would actually be emerging from the interior of the crust of the planet to take over here because they had so much more knowledge and power than we did. And because they used the energy of nature as when necessary to be in harmony with nature, which means that the Vril energy that they had was based on life energy. So of course, I mean, you couldn't eliminate that life energy, otherwise your battery goes dead. Joe cells don't work if you're on the wrong ley line. Right, right. So Eddie Dorpa, and this is another account of
going into the planet's crust. And it's, I am the man betrayed secret alchemical secrets and was sentenced to a trip to the Earth's interior. His guide was an eyeless being who lived underground in deep caverns, one of a cluster of numerous novels in the 19th century about travel to the interior. Why so many? And of course, Eddie Dorpa is Aphrodite backwards. Okay, and then Genesis for a New Space Age, and that's where this one came from, this graphic. It's an unpublished manuscript by a dead author, now on the web. Of course, there are rumors that it's going to be published finally. There's a fantastic quality of information about residents of the interior, corroborated with other sources. Vikings, Atlanteans, Baudelainders, the original people, and repentant Nazis among residents. Really. Maps of interior and surface entrances, and they're very detailed, and a claim of a special embassy at the UN for interior nations. Now, this is something that really needs corroboration as well.
It's supposed to be a room there, we're told.
Supposed to be, yeah. So, a journey to the Earth's interior. And Gardner was one of many to propose a central sun. Again, compelling argument. Assume that the entrance was centered on the pole, which I don't believe is correct. He made fundamental errors in interpretation of the data as well. Fan of the poles. There's no central sun in this one. Assume that the entrances were centered on the poles, which is an incorrect assumption. Many early works such as this are being reprinted, and compelling argument that the poles were never really discovered. However, if the entrance is offset, then the rotational pole is actually there, and it probably has been reached at that point. So, Journey to the Center of the Earth. Jules Verne wrote this in Bugarash. Photo of the mountain was used in Master of the World, and that's the Bugarash mountain. Seems to be extremely accurate in all other predictions, but seems to have placed intentional errors in the story. Was rewritten 3 times. Why? Now, there may be a possible entrance to the inner Earth or to some of these inner nations near Bugarash. Very strange stuff going on over there.
We
4
should say
different
that
versions.
Bugarash is the sacred, famous Cathar mountain here in South France, and even the shape of it is said to be in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's so many legends there.
Yes, very, very good point. And that's, in fact, they were going to use Bugarash in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then they moved it. So it's interesting that, I mean, this is kind of like a lightning rod for so many of these inner Earth and extraterrestrial themes, and then it's moved at the last minute.
Now, all the locals report the ETs coming and going, and there's serious reports of people being literally mummified in certain cavities inside Trigger Kundalini. Too many stories to go into here, but heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah. Really strange stuff. And, of course, there's the classic The Hollow Earth by Bernard. As most popular of Hollow Earth books, forerunner of a tidal wave of Hollow Earth books. Real name of the author was Walter Siegmeister. It's a somewhat scholarly account, reviewed data of previous authors. I reported lost in the Amazon while looking for the Hollow Earth entrance. And of course, we come to the late 20th century. Over 50 new Hollow Earth books published, mostly New Age themes. Branton, Bruce Allen Walton, published the Da'ath Wars, also called Mysteries of the Mojave, about cavern systems in the Hollow Earth conflicts. The Lacerda Files, about interviews in Sweden with an inner Earth reptilian that considered Earth dwellers usurpers.
That's
Admiral Byrd's, the current surface dwellers. Admiral Byrd's diary resurfaces about a flight to the interior, but is it real? And that's very debatable at this point.
Lots of detail in the history about that.
Yeah, and then there's Bruce A. Walton, which is Branton. He published a Guide to the Inner Earth in 1985, a comprehensive bibliography in Hollow Earth publications. And in 1990, reports from deep cave explorers, and they have contacts with humanoid residents underneath the Ozarks, Himalayas, Northern Rockies, and you might also mention different points in Europe as well as South America. Okay, and now we come to Brooke. So Plans made by Brooke and Rodney Clough to commission a Russian nuclear icebreaker. Plans have failed several times over the years, unfortunately. The spelunkers discover extensive cave networks in several places on Earth. A cave near Bugarach, nearly bottomless. 6 kilometers of rope does not reach the bottom. So, expeditions, as far as possibly going down there. How do we do it? We could do it in 2 phases. Phase 1 is contact with the residents of the cave network 10 to 20 kilometers beneath the surface. Phase 2 is a contact with deeper residents in hollow interior. There are several overland entry points: Quito, Ecuador, Mammoth Caverns, that's mentioned at Idorpa, near Bugarach in southern France, Mount Lassen in California, the Lost Sea in Tennessee, which they have recently closed down, as well as others. We need to investigate the allegation that there's an Office for Inner Earth Nations in the United Nations building. This is in Genesis for a New Space Age. And maybe we can get permission for entry.
I can certainly try that. I've got enough contacts at the UN, but to be frank with you, I question this because I was in asking a bunch of questions at the UN over a period of a couple of years between 2009 and 2011. And I didn't, none of these kind of covert space program officers seem to have any traction when I was looking into it and speaking to a number of ambassadors who were very interested in these subjects, but themselves were not privy to anything. So if it is a UN, it would almost certainly be the shadow UN element, which no ambassadors at large would ever know about, trust me.
Yeah, so we can't really we can't go through normal channels. We have to go through some different channels, parallel ones, to do this.
Yeah.
Brooks commented the opening at the north is around 86 degrees north. That's important to mention. But please finish, Bill. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's, in this graphic, there's an opening so large an Air Force C-5 Galaxy could easily fly into it. This is in Antarctica.